Fraser, welcome to TRMblog.com. Well, here we are in Glasgow at Ashton Lane. It's a very uber cool street, full of good bars, a couple of restaurants, and in the heart of Scotland. And how can we not be in Scotland and not talk about oats? And in your case, it's liquid oats. Of course, you now describe it as a contemporary whiskey liqueur, but what do you think actually makes this product so contemporary?
Well, thank you for having me on. Ashton Lane is my spiritual home. I've been working here for 23 years so far. The liquid oats is a contemporary drink. It's a modern version of an Athol Bros cocktail, really. And the Athol Bros goes back to the 1400s. Earl of Athol filled a well with whiskey, oats, honey, water obviously was in there, created this fantastic recipe that everyone wanted to come and have a wee taste of. And he managed to catch one of the rebellion leaders, I think Ian MacDonald was his name. So the Athol Bros is a significant part of our history, and we saw it resurging in cocktails and over the last 2 or 3 years. This is pre-COVID, and we then looked at this transition from dairy milk to oat milk and almond milk and rice milk and all these things, and we're going, right, and all the staff in Vodka, they're in their 20s, they're all quite young, so we try and keep our fingers in the pulse, and the whole combination of that with, well, we want whiskey to be accessible and sexy and younger people drinking it. We thought, God, if we put whiskey and condensed oat milk together to create a vegan cream liqueur, we might have a chance. So we actually made the product during lockdown when we had very little to do, and then we had friends of ours, Saved by Robots, design the label to make sure it's contemporary, it's modern. It doesn't say vegan or whiskey in the front, deliberately for the UK market. For the international market it will say, contains whiskey made in Scotland. But we see it as really, you can put it in any drink and it seems to work. In fact, that was part of the testing process. We got so many different mixers and various things. How can we, we've been doing cocktails for 23 years. That's all we've been doing all of our life. And we thought, God, this is just a fantastic ingredient. So
how's the product actually formulated, and what do you think sets it apart from others?
Well, I think the simplicity of it, the fact that we are hand making it, obviously, we're a startup brand, they're only a couple of years old. We literally hand make the condensed oat milk ourselves to a secret recipe, and then we take a blend of whiskey, 60% of which is Speyside whiskey, to get that vanilla and honey coming through. Add the two together, and there's no additives, there's no preservatives, because of the alcoholic volume of 15%. The fact that the sugar is condensed, so basically we pop that in a bottle, it's unadulterated, it's nice and simple, and it tastes great.
So do you think that consumers and even perhaps retailers fully understand liqueurs and their versatility?
I love that question, because actually if you look at the global market, there's few places that actually have high liqueur consumption. The UK is one of them. But I mean, we see obviously our customers, certainly the younger ones, doing shots of liqueurs. And I mean, I'm 45, I've been in the trade a while, but when I was in my 20s, we were doing shots of a 40% liqueur, and maybe having too many of them and not remembering our night. And we see now the UK customer in their 20s are having shots of 15 or 18% liqueurs and enjoying their night, and being more present in that moment. So we know that you can drink a liqueur by shots, but actually we see it as a cocktail modifier. We see it going into coffee. Liqueurs can be used in any mix of different drinks, and it's about getting that message out there to the customer.
I want you to take the high ground here and answer the question as to whether you think brands should be providing better education in this area, and do you actually even think it's the responsibility of brands to do so?
Absolutely. I mean, you build your brand by education from the ground up, and the first thing we did when we launched Liquid Oats was to go out around the bartenders that we know and tell them all about this wonderful liquid and how it can be used, and why it's vegan, why it's good for the environment. But ultimately, they're lovely to have things. It's all about the taste of the product, and it tastes great. And as soon as you get someone to taste your product, and if it tastes great, you've got a 100% fighting chance. But that education thing is key.
Well, interesting is that you are actually a bartender-founded brand. I mean, do you think that this actually especially resonates with consumers?
I don't actually think that consumers care too much, or maybe we don't present it enough. I think the key thing here is that it's really, really difficult to start your own drinks brand in any country, you know. So we're in the UK. We launched this during COVID because we had nothing else to do, and we didn't think it was going to be a thing until, you know, over 200 bars in Scotland stock our product and people love us, and you know, we're starting to export now. So there was a moment where we actually just, you know, weren't thinking we would ever get there. But if you look at the big brands who want to launch any product like this, their marketing budget is £500,000 to £1 million in the UK alone. You know, we literally do this with our own cash. We haven't taken any investment, and all of the venues that we have just pop money back in to grow the product. And it's a really difficult thing to have your own product and not be a big brand with a big budget behind you. So it's harder to be a bartender-owned brand, but we really believe in the product, and we think we're going to get there. So,
I mean, you said earlier that Liquid Oats is a vegan liqueur. Why did you actually use oat milk in the formulation as opposed to the other choices that you may have had?
So Liquid Oats isn't necessarily about veganism, it's about sustainability. And every part of our process, from where we started, we look at how can we be more sustainable, more circular. So if you look at the array of you know, dairy-free alternative milks out there, oat milk is the best one for sustainability.
And I guess flavour profile as well.
Well, the flavour profile worked anyway, so we got lucky actually. You know, when we made this liquid, we actually looked in the back gantry and picked a, you know, actually relatively expensive Speyside single malt off the shelf and put it in and went, oh my god, that's brilliant. And then we were playing around with it. We used different whiskies and went, actually no, that doesn't taste so good. So the oats and the Speyside for sure, with that vanilla and honey coming through. Again, there's no honey added, but you get that flavour. Really works. But oat milk versus cow's milk, for instance, uses something like 450 litres less of water per litre made. The carbon emissions are almost 80% less. So, you know, versus a cream liqueur, we're doing our bit for the environment by, you know, reducing our carbon emissions, reducing our water usage. We don't use any plastic anywhere. All of this is vegan wax and cardboard, you know, even cardboard packaging tape. We don't use any labels where possible. So this is organic ink. We use a stamp for the outside of our boxes. And we've started sustainable so that we can continue that journey, as opposed to any other brands who start off successful and then have to be sustainable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not so easy to retrofit, is it?
Well, as long as you say you're trying to do it, then you get away with it, but we just want to start off from the start, you know. And again, that's back to the contemporary thing, you know. I have staff who interview me now and say, well, what are you doing, you know, to save the planet? You're running all these businesses. We want to be part of a business where the owner actually cares about what's happening, and this is really important to the next generation coming through.
Okay, let's move on and talk about your cocktail program. I mean, what are your signature serves, and how do you develop these, and what consumer insights did you use to do so?
So this is very important, because if you create a cocktail and no one knows the name and no one recognises what's in it, they're not going to buy it. And the psychology of cocktails and cocktail menus and cocktail making, that's all I've done for 20 years. So the best way, in my opinion, is to start off with a name that people understand, recognise, go, I'm going to drink that, and then actually backfill the cocktail. But when you're launching any brand, when you're launching any, and you want to sell liquid, you generally have to find what are the top 10 cocktails sold in the UK right now and make a version of that, because, you know, the consumer is ever humbling. They'll only drink what they recognise, and they'll maybe go for a wee twist. So if you put something completely out there, they're not going to drink it. Therefore, in the winter, our signature cocktail is a White Russian, served vegan, of course. So we have liquid oats, we have a vegan coffee liqueur, oat milk, shake it up, cinnamon over the top. It's a fantastic drink. During the summer, we have a peanuts colada. So we have liquid oats with a coconut rum, pineapple juice.
I like the name Peter's
Well,
I like it.
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a really good drink. A bit of lime juice, a bit of sugar, and the drink is just perfect. And that's been a big success for us.
Just looking at one of the points you made earlier about, you know, consumers needing to recognise the name of cocktail drinks. Well, we went recently to one particular cocktail bar in York, and it must have had 60 different cocktails. It's a very well-known place.
Yeah.
And it was packed. And so people obviously are prepared to learn, because he was prepared to learn, and it was absolutely jam-packed with people. And the choices were incredible, and cocktails were amazing.
Yeah.
That's Eva Lyon, they're not paying for this.
Good for them.
So, but actually, it's a seriously good place.
Uh-huh.
And obviously, consumers want
Yeah.
new cocktails, and they'll learn the name. And they're obviously quick learners in that respect.
Well, I mean, to add on that, 20 years ago, cocktail bars were few and far between.
Yeah.
We were the first commercial cocktail bar in Glasgow, arguably, and we also created a cocktail bar called Bloody Mary's or Billy Mardy's. And now you go into any bar, I would say 90% of bars sell a cocktail, as opposed to back then you had to be a specialised cocktail bar in order to have a cocktail given to you. And that's just through education, demand, but also this development of technologies for draft cocktails and batch cocktails and Aperol Spritz is a cocktail for example. So it's far more prevalent now than ever before.
One final question, Fraser. How much of a priority is the global travel retail market for you, and what opportunities have you identified there?
So we have worked with university students on liquid oats projects throughout the last year to identify which countries would be best suited to liquid oats in terms of their demographic, their choice in veganism, sustainability, and very, very loud and strong was Germany as the first and foremost in Europe. But we also did a Chamber of Commerce mission out to Singapore, a trade mission, just to have a look around and get a gauge on what could be wider afield. And we were told very strongly by a distribution company out there that Australia has a fascination with, again, the oat milk market, and whiskey oat milk liqueur would be really, really welcome there. So we think, wherever we go and people learn about our product and taste it, there's an opportunity there, but certainly those are the two strongest ones. I mean, we also did Showcasing Scotland this year with Scotland Food and Drink, and we have a live order from Canada to export there. Obviously there's a huge whiskey presence, Scottish presence there, but people like the sweetness with the whiskey as well. It's far more palatable. So travel retail, I think, is it's like the nerves going through the world. So someone will go to a duty free and they'll maybe have tasted it in its natural habitat. So hopefully they've come to Vodka Vodka and had some liquid oats, and in the future they're at duty free and they go, I'm going to take that home and show my pals. And that's where we enter the next export market, because then their pals will go, we want this product, how do we get it in the country? So it's absolutely essential we play in this market.
Great stuff, Fraser. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.